All right. Without further ado, then, uh, Brad, you're up. Introduce yourself and on with the show. If you're not Brad, you're muted.
Okay. Does that show up for everyone?
I can see it. It's a
Okay.
slide that says Jotblk with underscores or tildes below it.
Alrighty. So this will hopefully be a short one. I'm going to talk about a tool that I put together mostly just for me in the last, I think in the last month or so. Um, so basically, I use a lot of different laptops. I have a lot of these Chromebooks around the house, and we'll pick up random ones, and I'm often at different spots, and tend to use a lot of different devices, and I'll often ponder force related things, and I find that if I have to think about it a lot, I'll just not jot something down and so on, and will I like blocks as a form of editing? Number of reasons go into that, but so I wanted the tool that would let me take some notes with blocks. And strangely enough, like this is a recurring theme for me. I even back in 2008 with Rainbow Forth, I tried to put together actually a sort of a color forth block editor on the web, and I actually, even in prepping for this, I realized, wait, I had started down this road before with Micro eForth. I had given it the ability to do at least a line editor with blocks, and then simply forgot I had even done that. I'm like, well, I could add this, and then started looking. I'm like, oh, it's already there. Oh dear. And I think this is not, the block thing for me is probably just because the first Forth that I really used was Pygmy Forth, and I think that it uses blocks well, and kind of stuck with me. So anyways, the tool. By the way, the slides are in the tool, obviously. There's the cursor down here, and so I built the tool as I often do for folks who've seen some of my other web things on App Engine. App Engine is been around a long time now. It's Google's sort of cloud turnkey option if you kind of don't want to make a lot of choices about how to build a thing. Originally, it was something that was sort of its own standalone environment, but over the years, it's gotten kind of folded in, so it runs on top of other sorts of virtual machines. It has a data store API with sort of a very scalable model for a database. Obviously, for storing blocks, that's a little excessive, but it is what it is. It's now under the Firebase umbrella and a bunch of other changes that have happened around. For a good run of maybe 8 years or so, I used to think if I was going to set up something that I wanted to run perpetually, App Engine would be the thing because it was compatible and stayed the same. And then they've made some breaking changes over the years, so not so much. But in any event, so it's mostly just now a wrapper on a Python virtual environment that you can run and deploy to the web. They've pushed folks to use Flask, so I'm using Flask in it. And then I use JavaScript to render to a canvas. So this is like just an image that's getting each character sort of dropped into it. And then I take a monoface font, and I don't know if Zoom will show this, that it's being stretched to fit. So like if you squish it, it's just being squished in whatever dimensions you get, kind of goofy, whatever goofy aspect ratio. But there's 64 by 16, and then I have one extra row for a status line. And the key thing for me, of course, is I want to have it store everything centrally somewhere. So I have two kinds of requests. So the web page can read and write blocks. It can do a read of multiple blocks all at once, ask for a range of blocks, and then when you write, it writes a single block. And it keeps, memory is cheap now, so it just goes ahead and allocates 16,000 blocks, and actually it's 16 times 1024. So anyways, loaded into memory. It keeps track of some flags for if they've been modified or dirty, and then if they've actually been loaded. I don't want to load all of those all at once. And then when the web app loads, it loads the first chunk, and I load them in chunks of 64 blocks at a time. And then whenever there's a change, so like watch very closely in the bottom row, if I make an edit to this slide, you'll see the letter D appear down below. And if I delete it, it appears again, and that's showing the gap in time between when I wrote something to when it's actually persisted to the server. So why? And in the past when I've done this kind of thing, like with Rainbow Forth, there's a lot of elaborate sort of machinations about like how could I have blocks and share them amongst multiple people for a thing on the internet. And I this time around, I'm like, let me build it just for me, standalone, kind of like with and figure that out first. And so I have authentication. I won't go into it because it's not the absolute most rock solid secure thing in the world, but it's secure enough for this purpose. And so at the moment it's just a tool for one person, and I'll worry about how to generalize it later if I find that it in any way sticks for me. The editor is a very simple editor. It arrow keys to move, QWERTY to type, page up and page down, move between blocks. There's no shadow blocks because despite trying many times, I just don't like shadow blocks. And it's what was I trying to say here? Baked in. That's weird. Okay, I have no idea what that line was meant to mean. And then the I mean, I probably meant to say that it's built into the system. It's not built on top of a Forth as yet, which we'll talk about in a second. And then you can. I have a notion of inserting and deleting that's a little bit novel. I actually had a fun idea while I was putting the editor together. So if you put something in, and then let's say I decided I wanted to put something in front of that, it will do a proper insert and a proper delete. But what it does is it actually looks ahead some number of spaces. So if I put something over here and then I decide, oh, I want to do this, it's not going to bump the thing over there, and I can keep typing until it bumps into that, and then it gets hooked up. So it would allow for you to kind of spatially position things, but once they're sufficiently far apart, then it doesn't care about them bumping into each other, which is to my mind kind of one of the nice things with blocks is that you can kind of position things in 2D. It uses a color forth inspired copy paste notion of like a stack of things. It's line at a time, so I can I could, let's say, delete some set of lines, and then I can paste them back in, and they sort of do their thing, and that can move between screens. There's a status line on the bottom that in a softer color shows what block number you're on, and it auto saves as we saw before. So what about Forth in this world? There isn't one in here yet. I might just cave at some point and plug in micro eForth, which has a web variant that is flexible on the outside, and you can plug in arbitrary other functions to it. So I could try to glue in micro eForth. Part of what stopped me actually was that noticing that, oh, I've tried to plug blocks into this before a different way, and noticed that was sort of in a half-done state. But the main point was to jot down other ideas, and so I've been thinking about, do I want to modify it to have a color forth mode, or load maybe like a boot block in JavaScript, or somehow work on a Forth where the parser kind of lives outside of the Forth VM, or maybe the dictionary lives outside. A lot of different ideas. Can I decompose micro eForth differently? Micro eForth is built on this kind of, these 5 words are like the 5 non-simple opcodes that you need, and then kind of a handful of variables that you build the world out of. I could find a different foundation and try that. So lots of ideas, but I'll have to jot them down and keep some notes. So that's it. Any questions?
Yeah,
So I
Brad.
guess that editor's not written in Forth.
It is not written in Forth. It is written in JavaScript, mainly because you have a sort of a chicken and egg problem, and I've had this before. Like with my most recent color Forth, you need an editor to edit the thing, and then you can write the Forth. You can do it the other way around, but then you're kind of stuck with, well, I'll have to use an editor from somewhere else, and then so there is this a little bit of a bootstrapping issue. So.
Brad, the obvious question that I've got is why didn't you just copy the Polyforth editor?
That's a good argument. What is the sort of legal status of polyfourth at this point?
I can't define that. I'm not a lawyer, but as an example of what you're trying to accomplish, it does and has forever.
Probably should take a closer look. I absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What you were describing was the editor that I've used most of my career. Not most of my career, no. While I was at fourth.
But does the polyfourth need to be installed?
Technically, to do the editing, yes. And that's the stumbling block. As I said, I am not a lawyer.
I think there'd also be the small matter of then I'd be on the since my goal is to have this available on lots of different random laptops I happen to pick up, I'd have to focus on the then now bootstrapping polyfourth on top of an environment there. But as you say, that like chicken and the egg, you build the editor first, you build the fourth first, and then the other problem.
Typically, Leon built the editor first.
Interesting. That I had not heard. Interesting that was often the bootstrapping path. Yeah.
At least I think he did. This was you're talking decades.
Well, it's the same like Chuck's Colorforth, right? He builds the editor in assembly as well, right? It's not, if I'm remembering right. Is that right,
Brad?
No.
Where do the actual blocks reside on the cloud?
So yeah, there's a copy of them that gets synced to the individual laptop, but the bits reside in a Firebase database in the cloud. So,
all right.
Of course,
If someone is interested in having this for their very own and trying it out and using it,
I have at the moment not.
Is there a recipe?
I have not yet released it. I will probably at some point move in that direction, but
perhaps wait for someone to express interest
indeed
in actually wanting the recipe for having the
in its current form. If I were to release the recipe, since the database is a private database, you would need to spin up a whole separate instance of it yourself and so on. But
don't
specifically to avoid that problem. Yeah.
Don't write the recipe until someone says that they want to eat the food.
Indeed.
Right. And you are talking about the root level of almost every fourth. It's very hardware dependent, it is very software dependent, and best of luck.
Of course, the purpose of Cozy, since this is the fourth Cozy is like the third iteration, the very fundamental point is to be a notebook. And so actually I just happened to see in fourth Cozy, my records go back to 2006. So, and all of it is searchable. And it's interesting to see the very first thing, in a sense, when Cozy comes alive, and then he said, is when I can take notes in it, and also, of course, execute lines in it, and so forth. And I see, and one of the things is I happen to look at my original first absolute notes that got saved from 2006. And actually, one of the things I happened to look at an example where I pulled up Chuck Moore's birthdays, which is September 9th, 1938. Because, but in any case, that ability to take down a thought at any point in time is, to me, the absolutely central most, that's the motivation. But the ability to execute any of those thoughts is also, just those are the two aspects. So being able to retrieve any memory going back. And if you look at my daily log, the whole purpose of that is anything that's significant that I run into and so forth. Now there's a daily log. I upload it to Cozy, but now actually with the ability to, which I recently just did, of uploading directly, having a line that uploads whatever, I can go and have the thing automatically upload my notes to my own private directories as I want. So, and Cozy's freely downloadable.
Hey, Brad.
Is there version control or backup for the editor or to the blocks or anything like that? Anybody ever look at that for backups or version control?
They're not version controlled at the moment. It's a good point. That's actually a line of thought that I've spent a shocking amount of in other kinds of versions of this tooling. You can kind of go slow. Then you start designing a block-based version control system and things like that in your head. For the moment, it is if it's overwritten, it's overwritten. So it's a single space. The copy in the cloud, sort of wins. So if you have two instances of it running, they'll actually fight with each other. So it's best I don't do that type of thing. But these are all the challenges of having a distribute. This eventually leads you to rebuilding Google Docs or something like that. So that, which is can be a pile of edge cases. So.
I guess the other interesting things, if you're at the beach or something, you don't have internet connection. So this is why Git had a thing where you can work locally or you can work off a cloud, because you have these situations where you may or may not have connection.
Indeed, and the web is got lots of rope. So there's local storage and all kinds of, like, if you want, you can really go deep down this particular rabbit hole but I try to keep it simple. Like, I assume most of the situations I'm in, I have a connection, so I assume that as a given. Most of the time, the scale of it is such that I'm not too worried if I lose one individual block. I've had one data loss instance so far. I had a bug where I did something wrong with the dirty bit and lost a couple of blocks. So, but so far so good. We'll see.
Hey, Brad.
I can.
Okay. I like your editor. It's quite interesting that we probably didn't have mouse and cut and paste until the early 1990s. We take these so much for granted these days, but do you think that mouse operations and cut and paste would have been possible earlier just using 8-bit technology?
Probably. I mean, I think there probably were some, there were some early attempts at GUIs on like C64s with gems or whatever. And, like, I think there were some attempts in that direction. I think early enough, you get into problems of, like, depends on what you're cutting and pasting to the clipboard. Like, even the early Mac used a file for the clipboard. So there was a sort of, if the size of the data that you're dealing with is large in relation to the space of the clipboard, then you can run into all kinds of funny issues. So yeah, certainly. I think also it's a kind of a mental mindset set of, like, how to grab and move around text is I guess kind of anchored on that clipboard model. There's pros and cons. I didn't describe it very well in the talk, but there's an idea in the Colorforth editor that I've mimicked here on a line-by-line basis, which is, rather than treating it purely like a clipboard where there's just one thing in it, what you do is you have a stack, and then as in Colorforth, as you delete each word, those are pushed into a stack, and then you can pop off of that stack to load things back in. And I've done the same thing here with lines, where you can delete line at a time or push them back in. And then there's with copy, you can copy things into that stack without deleting the lines. And so that's kind of the model that I've done here. But I think there's probably more possible combinations for copy paste than we have with clipboards. And there's even, I believe today, a fruitful ecosystem of there are these clipboard assistants and things that will actually let folks keep a whole archival of everything they copy paste. And this is even there is a little bit of experimentation in general in the world happening in this space. So I think it's one of these user interface ideas that stuck pretty early on with GUIs, but then it's somewhat imperfect. So.
Brad, thank you very much for your insights. I appreciate your comments. Thank you. That's widened my horizons. Thank you.
All right, last call. Any questions, comments? Make it quick. Going once, going twice. All right. Liang,